Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. I'm Matt. This is Iron Sharpens Iron. And in today's video, I want to cover the three H's of transformation. Now, have you ever found yourself stuck in a rut? Have you ever found yourself in a position where kind of you don't like the way things are going and you want change? I get it, man. I've been there. We've all been there at some point. Hopefully, we don't get stuck there for too long, but frequently we do. But the three H's of transformation that I want to cover hopefully will help you understand the process of change and how to start it and get out of the rut that you're in. If you think about a caterpillar that becomes a butterfly, there's three stages, right? There's a caterpillar, there's a cocoon, and then there's a butterfly. And that metamorphosis process encompasses all three of those stages. So all change, all major transformation has three main parts. The first part, the first part is your head, right? You've got to decide that you want to change. There has to be some reason to change. And as Simon Sinek says, you have to find your why. And there's a funny story that when I think about it, it makes me laugh. But a funny story that Jim Rohn used to tell is, you see, Jim Rohn is a well-known public speaker. He's written countless books and he was a major icon in the world of self-improvement and sales. And there was a point in his life when he was broke. And the story he tells about that is really funny. You see, one day Jim's at home and he hears a knock on the door. He goes to answer the door and he sees this adorable little Girl Scout standing on the door, or standing at the door, selling cookies. And she asks Jim, "Hey, do you want to buy some Girl Scout cookies?" And the way Jim tells the story is he desperately wanted to buy some cookies. There's only one problem. He didn't have any money to buy cookies. He didn't have enough money to buy a $2 box of cookies or however much it was at the time. But Jim decided to lie to this adorable, cute little girl. And he says, "I already bought some when I was at the office." And the Girl Scout, she just beams with a smile. And she says, "Well, thank you so much for supporting the Girl Scouts. Your support means so much to me. Have a great day." And she turns and walks away. Jim closes the door. And in that moment, he's immediately disgusted with himself for having lied to this adorable little girl. But more than that, he was disgusted with his life and the fact that he simply could not afford to buy a box of Girl Scout cookies. And it was in that moment of disgust that he decided to change. And that's the first H of transformation. You have to decide in your head. It starts in your head. You have to decide you want change. You have to find your why, as Simon Sinek says. Whatever the reason is for you, stick with that. The second H of transformation is your heart. You see, once you decide to change, like Jim Rohn says, you have to change inwardly. You have to start working harder on yourself than you do on your job or the people around you. You can't change the people around you. The only thing you can change is you. And in that heart part of this transformation, the inward changes, once we decide to change, we have to begin changing inwardly. We have to become more educated. We have to start building our skills. We have to change our thought processes and our perspectives. And the third H of the transformation process is simply your hands, right? It begins in your head, it goes to your heart, and then you start living differently outward. You start living differently outwardly. The world starts seeing the change that you've already known is happening on the inside. You see, there's an old phrase. There's an old scripture in the Bible that says, "As a man thinketh, so is he." There's also a book with the same title, "As a man thinketh." But the process is very simple. Your thoughts become your actions. And if you repeat those actions, they become habits. And if you repeat those habits, they become a lifestyle. And ultimately, your lifestyle becomes your legacy. It's that process of thought, action, habit, lifestyle, legacy. See, once you decide to change in your head and you begin to change in your heart on the inside, the outside actions naturally follow and become consistent with what's already happening on the inside. But change is hard. Change is hard for humans. And throughout human history, change has signified danger. At the very least, it signifies periods of discomfort and difficulty, right? You see, change kills oftentimes. And if we want to change, if we truly want to change, then Our old thinking and our old ways of life and our old actions, they have to die. We have to allow them to die. Sometimes we have to kill them ourselves. So change kills, and it's very difficult. But more than that, change always costs something. Change is not free. It's difficult, it's deadly, and it costs us something. See, oftentimes we must be willing to give up the things that we've had before. Sometimes that could be friends. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's family members. But we have to be willing to give up things like alcohol or excessive spending, watching too much TV, wasting time, wasting money, wasting our thoughts oftentimes. So our change costs us something. There's a concept called the sunk cost fallacy. The sunken cost fallacy basically says that just because you've spent a lot of time or money in something doesn't mean you have to keep paying for it. You don't have to keep, just because you spent a lot of time making a mistake doesn't mean you have to keep making the same mistake. Just because you spent 10 years at a dead end job doesn't mean you have to stay there. Just because you've spent, a long period of time in an abusive or a toxic relationship doesn't mean you have to stay there in that relationship. Maybe it can be changed. I don't know. But many times it can't. But the sunk cost fallacy is basically just because you spent a lot of time doing something or spending money on something doesn't mean you have to keep it. Like the Kenny Rogers song says, in life for poker, you have to know when to hold them and you have to know when to fold them. And just because you spent a lot of money playing a bad hand doesn't mean you have to keep playing that hand. In life, you can always change. But it begins with those three processes, those three things: your head, your heart, and your hands. But remember, change is difficult, it's deadly, and it costs us something. Whether our old friendships die, whether old lifestyles die, we have to give up certain things, but that's okay. But change stretches us. Ultimately, change stretches us. Think of a rubber band. If you just hold a rubber band in front of your face, it's very comfortable. You can hold it there all day. You don't feel any sort of threat or discomfort at all. But if you take that rubber band and stretch it right in front of your face, you're going to start feeling a little uncomfortable. You're going to start feeling a little bit nervous. You're going to start feeling a little bit scared. That rubber band could snap and hit you right in the eye. But if you take that rubber band and you stretch it and you point it in the right direction and you let it fly, it's going to go a greater distance than if you just drop it or if you just hang on to it, right? And that's what change does in our lives. Change stretches us. But if you aim that change in a meaningful, purpose-driven direction, that change will take you far beyond your wildest dreams. So that's my challenge today for you and for me. My challenge is that you break out of whatever rut you're in by understanding that change takes three meaningful steps: your head, your heart, and your hands. And if you follow that step and you get the why, everything else falls in line. So that's my challenge to you today. If you're stuck in a rut, if you're stuck in a spot or a funk that you don't want to be, it's not necessarily easy to get out, but once you know the process and you know what to expect, it becomes far easier to undertake that process. Sure, it's going to be difficult, and you may stumble, you may fall, you may get bumped and bruised a little bit, maybe a lot. But take those opportunities and those setbacks, not as setbacks or obstacles, but as stepping stones and springboards to a better you. So that's it for today's video. I appreciate you watching. If you found some value in this, or if you think there's somebody that you know who could take this message and you could help them with it, feel free to please hit the like button and share this video with your friends and your family members who you know need some sort of encouragement. If you think this is great for you, then hit the like button. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.